Hello, friends, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. This episode is for Monday, June 26, 2023. I'm Jer Stays, and with me is
Fletcher Sharpe.
Now, we're doing something special. We're recording the Monday show from Keyworth after the match. We're going to talk about the Detroit City FC loss to Orange County in a minute. But first, a couple other stories. Number one, we definitely need to talk about the Detroit Pistons in the draft. And then everyone's a buzz about these Lions helmets that add a lot of blue and a lot of retro to things. But first, let's talk about the draft, Fletcher Sharpe. How do you feel we did?
I mean, people say it was a B. People say it was a B plus, A minus. I think it's maybe a B minus or so. I understand Osar Thompson. I get he's a really great dynamic scorer, but the league he played in was a bunch of children. And, I don't know. I mean, being MVP of the league of children is great, but also if I go out there and beat, 6 or 7 teams full of, 17-year-olds, I shouldn't be drafted in the MLS. But, I mean, it's a good pick. I think he'll be decent for them. He's not a starter, obviously. So, it kind of, to me, is not the best pick, but it's something that'll get them moving forward. He's a player who can develop. What I'm really upset about is I said they wanted James Nanji in the second pick in the second draft. They picked him, but they traded him away from Marcus Sasser, who's a great point guard, had a great college career, had a great last year in college. But I think they needed more size, and they didn't get it. So, it's unfortunate, but, I mean, a step forward is a step forward.
So you don't really believe, you're not buying the overtime elite?
No. I've watched a few of those games, and it's basically AAU with they're paying you money, which is honestly AAU, they pay you money anyways. So it's just AAU, just a bigger form of it. So
for those who don't know,
it's amateur athletic union. It's basically your kid's a really good basketball player in high school. You go to AAU, play with a bunch of other kids in the area, and you get more exposure. You get to be a lot better, and you get to get the links into playing with other kids who are trying to go to college programs. So it's really just rec extra, but it's also really, really good. If you're playing AAU ball, you're paying money unless your team's really good, and then they're paying for sponsorship and other things like that. So Overtime Elite to me really felt like a bunch of AAU All-Stars playing against other AAU All-Stars. I understand it. I guess it is good for development, but so far it's only been 2 years. They have not had a guy drafted up until this year, and the people they've had who play pro in the NBA currently are not doing very well. So it's kind of to me I don't know, but we'll see what's going to happen this year, and we'll be a lot more vested interest because the Pistons have a player from Overtime Elite. So.
Now, do you think that this is going to be an overall improvement from last year, or you're not where are you on that? Because I'm looking at that going, hey, these are some pieces that we can use and put to work.
I mean, there are pieces you can use and put to work, but I like to try, if you're drafting in the top 8 or 9 places, the kid you're drafting should be a starter. He should be someone who's going to be grown into a starter. And this guy currently is your 6th or 7th guy off the bench. He's not the guy who's coming in to start immediately because your starting guards are already filled. I think a small forward would have been a lot better. Maybe even a center would have been a little bit better. But, I mean, they have the pieces. They can work with it and go from there. Got to be somewhat optimistic because he is a good scorer. People have a lot of good things to say about him, but I would have preferred a different position to fill the spot there. But that's just me. I'm not a head coach or a general manager, obviously.
Now, when there was all that craziness about Wembanyama, a lot of people were saying, well, outside of him, the draft isn't that solid. Is this a problem with the draft not being that solid, or do you think the Pistons pick was wrong?
I mean, the draft is decently solid. It was kind of hectic. I mean, everyone else, Wembanyama has his issues. Obviously, he's very underweight at his height, but he's supremely talented, supremely amazing. So, yeah, his holes are a bit smaller. Scoot Henderson right after that, he can't really shoot, but he can get to the hoop and do a bunch of other things. Brendan Miller has his own issues, obviously, off the court. The Thompson twins haven't really played against much competition. So, everyone's holes are a bit bigger than Wembanyama's. I think there are some good players there. I think maybe some of them slid. Cam Whitmore is someone I really wanted. Obviously, something was wrong because he slid all the way to near the bottom of the first round, which is indicative of something being very wrong. That doesn't happen to someone who's.
So when you say wrong, you're saying injury, something we don't know.
I mean, what I heard is he had his little pre-draft workouts with teams, and teams are like, "Oh, this is what you really do. We're gonna look somewhere else." Because the Pistons were almost a lock for Whitmore. Then after his workout with them early on. Right before the draft, they're we're going to go somewhere else instead. And you notice the Pistons went somewhere else. A lot of teams went other places. The Rockets were lucky to get back into the first round and get him then, which is great. But it's nuts to see someone who is supposed to be a top 5, top 6 pick drop to late teens, early 20s. That means you did something really messed up and teams do not want to take the gamble on you anymore.
And is there anything in the offseason that the coach or the GM can do where you're all right, I feel better about this?
Not really, no. I mean, you brought in a head coach who knows how to win in this league. You paid him a lot of money to do so. I'm expecting them to still not make the playoffs this year. Be really competitive in games, do the best they can, but I'm expecting them to still probably fall just short of the last play-in spot just because they're a young team. They don't really have, like, veteran presence. They have Bojan, who's been doing great, but I assume they're probably going to trade him during the season as well. So, like, you're looking forward towards the future. So really nothing right now. I mean, if they have a good summer league, that's great, but, like, it's really about the regular season and what goes on from there.
Now, this Lions helmet got everybody a buzz. It's got that bright blue with the retro logo. People were in my inbox like, hey, talk about it. This is great. This is a thing. I want to hear what you think, and then I'll share what I think.
If it wasn't blue, I'd be more in tune with it. It being a blue helmet makes me think it's like a Madden 2018 custom helmet that some 15-year-old's like, look at this cool helmet, and you're like, bro, that's terrible. Or like a helmet you give to like a Pop Warner team to say, look, we're the Harrisburg Lion. Like I don't like a blue helmet for a team that traditionally wears a silver helmet. I understand going back to the retro logo, and sure, that's nice and all, but like my one flip side of argument is like you don't see the Green Bay Packers changing their helmet up very much, do you? They have a very iconic logo. The Lions logo currently is a very iconic logo. Whether it's synonymous with losing or anything of the sort, it's synonymous with the NFL. You see it, you know exactly whose logo it is. So to kind of pivot away from that just to like, I don't know, maybe make a few people happy is weird to me. Just win. If you win, then like the logo and helmet look better. But at this point, like no more of that. Just go out there, win some games. We'll talk about the helmet and all that other stuff the following season after you put together a winning record and make the playoffs and get bounced in the first or second round.
Before we were talking a little bit, that is a retro logo from like the mid 40s to the 60s. And it's funny because it looks like an old vintage car brand, but was actually around before the Fords took over the team.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that it's an older logo. The first time I saw it before zooming in, I thought it was like, that's a new logo they're making. No. Looking back, I recognize the logo. I remember being a kid going to Lions games at Pontiac Silverdome. They used to have like all the different logos in the book where it's like logo from the 30s, from the 50s, So I understand from that point, and I like that they're incorporating some of the older things in there, but just keep the helmet silver like it's always been. Keep it silver. Don't make it blue and make it look like you're trying to, make a video game looking helmet for no reason. Like don't do that, man. It's weird. Don't do that. We're not Seattle. Like keep it basic and classic and, normal.
Now, I got to say, I'm glad that we did not turn all the way back to the 1930s. The guy that's like rushing there with like the helmet over the lion. That would have been awful.
I mean, yeah, at that point, just go to the leather helmets. We don't even need that logo anymore. Just put the leather helmets on and hope that they don't, crack their heads like an egg or something.
Yeah. All right, this match we just watched, I think a return to the mean when it comes to Detroit City's offense. We've been on a hot streak. There's been a lot of good things to talk about the last few weeks. And then when you're dealing with like today, it's not the same.
Yeah, no, their offense, I mean, you had to assume it's probably going to fall back to the normal a little bit. It falling against Orange County is not great because they're not an amazing team. They're not the worst team, but the way it fell apart wasn't really great. The offense didn't show up. The defense didn't really cover the holes. Before the game, I kept saying one person I need to look out for, Milano Losky. He's a one guy, led the league in goals last year. He's a leading goal scorer this year, leading assist guy this year. He's a one guy to pay attention for offensively. He's a straw that makes the drink stir. On the goal, the ball got booted into the air by Devin Mumensa, and the defense just left him alone to head the ball into the back of the net. It's reminiscent of earlier in the year where like all the goals they gave up were just people they left by themselves to just figure stuff out, which I understand sometimes you have like a moment where you turn off, but like it's their moments where they turn off are always critical. It's never like a moment they turn off, a guy takes a shot and misses wide or something, or makes a shot, he gets saved. It's always a guy turns off and the ball's in the back of the net. And like that can't, if you're trying to make the playoffs, even the last seed, that cannot happen consistently. That cannot be a thing. It cannot be your calling card. It's like Tottenham in the English Premier League. Everyone's like, well, Tottenham has a lead. We all know Tottenham chokes. They're going to give the game up. It can't be DCFC. If they make a mistake, you'll score off it. That cannot be the thing for you. So, like, it's a little frustrating to see that pop up as well. But, like, I mean, second half they played better, but at that point you're chasing a goal. You never want to chase a goal because you probably won't find it if you're chasing it that hard.
Yeah, I mean, that second half did look a little bit better, but we didn't see the offensive tools that we usually do, and it felt, I don't know, like for instance, Maxi Rodriguez did not feel like he was on tonight in the same way that he was in some of the wins. It felt like, Dario really tried to do some things when he came on late, but there just wasn't the connection. The passes weren't as crisp. I don't know what it was, but like maybe it was some of the hurt players. You know, we came into this match missing a couple of people. Michael Bryant missed his first minutes of the season. I don't know exactly what it is, but it just didn't seem right tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of energy from off the field things that were transpiring. So I know maybe some people were looking at it there. Maybe some of the players have their head, focused on other things to take energy away. But yeah, they just came out looking a bit different. They tried a few extra fancy passes a few times that like the person receiving the ball was like, "What are you doing? Why didn't you just give it to me?" Like it felt like people were just trying to be like a little bit too cute at moments they shouldn't have. And like unfortunately for those, like they were backbreaking moments because the few times I saw it, DCFC had chances to like get the ball closer to the box. Maybe not score, maybe not get a good shot or something, but at least built some offensive pressure. And then someone would do like a little fancy trick pass or something where like the ball would just roll away. And both people are like, why did you do that? Like, why did you do that thing where you try to juggle a ball 3 times and backheel it to me? I'm literally right in front of you. We all know where the ball's going. Just give me the ball. So just, yeah, I think maybe people were just jazzed up a little bit too much. Dario came in. He had one volley that he hit like maybe a mile wide, but had he caught it cleanly, it would have been ESPN #1 play of the week. Amazing volley from him. It's probably the most inspired he's looked coming into the game for a minute. But yeah, no Michael Bryant, no Brett Levis off the bench, who played great his last game. Unfortunately, Lay Diop got hurt during the game, so Dom Gasso came in to play about 60 minutes of relief, which is good for him. It's good for his development. I really hope that Lay's okay, because so far Lay's been the best player for like the last stretch of these few games. So losing him right now is not good. And honestly, me hearing myself in the past say this now would be like,
I was about to say, because last year,
last year I was very harsh on him. I'm like, if he doesn't grow into the game, like he's got to go, because while he is young and he's a talented player, he's making these big mistakes where he's like critical error mistakes. And this year he's cleaned that up and it's been great. But unfortunately, without him in there, you didn't really have that destroying center defensive mid who could get the ball up and maybe take a hard shot. Dom Gasso is a great player, a talented player, but he's not Lay Diop. We're not going to kid ourselves there. So unfortunately, it kind of took away from what could have been there. And after Orange County scored, they just really had to run out the clock, and that's what they did the second half. Is when they had the ball in their possession, it's someone's hurt, let's take a few seconds. The keeper takes all the time he can to make a save, and then after that he kind of walks around with the ball. They'll take the cheap foul to stop a counterattack from happening. Even at late in the game, they got a red card because Devin Amendment was about to throw the ball in. And one of their guys on the bench just grabs him to slow down the game, just to be like, oh, we can't throw the ball in now. And it was the thing that did the game in, because right after he threw the ball in, they got maybe 2 more kicks of the ball, and the ref blew the whistle for the end of the game. So just, they got to figure out what it is. It's unfortunate this was the last home game for a minute at Keyworth. You kind of want to do a little bit better, but it is what it is at this point. You got to look forward and hope you don't do this again.
Well, it was a really solid crowd of 6,669. What are some of the things to retool going into this road stand?
Figure out what's wrong with your offense at home. Like at home, the offense always looked bad. Even against San Antonio, the game they won, it was like we scored a goal early. Awesome. We're not playing offense the rest of the game. The rest of the game, we're all sinking back. We're making you take all these shots. We're going to defend with 11 at the back. So figure out what's wrong with your offense, where you had at Hartford, what you had, elsewhere. Figure out how to take that and then move it into like other games at home and other places going forward, so you can try to make the playoffs. Because otherwise, if you're going to go back to the way you were before, you're not making the playoffs. If you can't score goals, you don't win games. If you don't win games, you don't advance in the standings. If you don't advance in the standings, you don't make the playoffs. It's very, very simple. I know like there's a lot of strategies and schemes and such, but really it's put the ball in the net, stop them from putting the ball in your net, you win games. And right now they're not doing that at this moment.
What do you put their playoff percentages at right now?
7%.
Ouch. So you're not positive. You want to see more consistent scoring, something like that? Because we're really pretty much at or right around the halfway mark of the season right now.
Even in their good run of play, where like they were doing great, getting draws, getting some wins and some ties, like they weren't really putting the ball in the net. Like some stuff had changed. The only difference that had changed really was the ball was going in the net. Like, obviously, Ben Morris put some balls in the net earlier on the season. He has more goals. Some of those ties turned to wins. Some of those losses turned to ties. Some of those wins turned to even bigger wins. So, like, I'm not going to put the blame all on him because it's on other people as well. But, like, that's really it. The ball is going into the net. This time, the ball did not go into the net. And you really can't do much except, not aim at the keeper at this point.
Yeah. Well, and I hope some of those players get back. Like, it looked like, although Michael Bryant was in street clothes, it didn't look like he was cast it up or anything like that.
It wasn't like when we saw Matt Lewis after his injury where he came back and like he had like that big boot. You're like, something is wrong. He was in street clothes, regular, just sitting there. So maybe it's like a small injury that just he needed some time to just recover a little bit, and it happened to come up right now. Which is, you'd rather have it happen now than have it happen later when you're trying to make a big push towards the playoffs. So yeah, it's unfortunate. You don't like it, but I mean, you'd rather, again, an injury happen now than happen later, because at least now you can make up for it. Later, if it happens, that's just kind of it.
For sure. All right. Well, that is it for your Daily Detroit. Thank you so much to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/dailydetroit for supporting us. As always, feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com. Did you love the helmets? How do you feel about the draft? And of course, how are you feeling about the Detroit City season? With that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharpe.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.